Rocksteady have announced their new game, and it's Suicide Squad. How exciting. When I heard the news, I was pretty pumped. But then I saw that it looks like it's going to be another live service. And when you combine live service with Warner Brothers at the helm, that spells trouble. And ladies and gentlemen, I think we're going to be in for a bumpy ride with this one. Hi, Estelden here. So I was really interested to find out that Rocksteady were working on this, because every couple of months or so I do look up what they've been doing. And that's because since Arkham Knight came out, they've really had nothing going on, at least publicly. And that suggested to me, given how long it's been, that maybe there'd been some trouble afoot in the studio. Maybe they'd run into a few problems. Reminds me a lot of Retro Studios, or a Nintendo studio. They released Donkey Kong in 2014, I think it was, Tropical Freeze, and then they did nothing for a number of years. There were no games coming out, and then we only found out, I think it was last year, that they were working on Metroid Prime 4. So when you've got a missing gap like that, and keep in mind, Metroid as well as Suicide Squad don't seem to be coming anytime soon. Suicide Squad seems like it'll be coming in probably 22 at the very earliest, maybe even later, depending on delays and things like that are so damn fucking common in this industry now. And because of that, it suggests that something went wrong along the way. They were obviously working on something before this. I don't think they've been spending 6 or so years coming up with this. There's no way that Warner Brothers would see that as cost effective, and we know how scummy they are. So what it points to is, at least from all the rumours, everything I've read over the years, is that Rocksteady were originally working on a Superman game, and either they ran into trouble themselves along the way, and I can appreciate that, because Superman, obviously hard to develop for. We all meme on about Superman 64, but at the end of the day, trying to come up with a game that works for the hero himself is very, very tricky, clearly. I mean, he's so overpowered that trying to make something that's quite similar in the vein to the Arkham Games is obviously not really going to work. It's not going to be very true to Supes himself. And obviously with the Arkham series, and I will say myself, I absolutely loved Arkham Asylum, Arkham City, and then you've got Arkham Knight, which didn't really get the same reception as those games. I think Rocksteady knew they needed to come up with something a bit more innovative. They needed to really take things forward. And what that seems to have led to is a failed project along the way in Superman. And I want to say that it could have been fun. What they were working on could have actually been really fun. We don't know if there was a great game in the works there. The problem is that what might be a good game for us, for the consumer, might not necessarily have been a good game in Warner Brothers' eyes. And that's because maybe they didn't see how they can monetize it. They might have taken a look and gone, right, this is a very single-player focused game. How are we going to monetize this and get the full potential out of it? Because we tried that with Shadow of War, and everyone hated us. We ended up having to remove all the microtransactions at the very end, which showed who we truly were, that we were just shoving absolute crap into this game for the sake of money, at the expense of the integrity of the game. And given they were able to remove them, keep the game intact, improve it to a degree, just shows that the scummy crap that they put into these games is not for our benefit at all, even though they're asking for extra money for us to experience it. It's clearly not necessary and provides no value at all. So I think maybe something like that happened. Realistically speaking, and generally with these things, it might have been a bit of a cross between the two. Maybe they were making the follow-up tonight that we were expecting. It was a big Superman game in a big world. Maybe it just wasn't that fun. Superman was too overpowered. It was not really creating the magic that the Arkham games had. And it also wasn't a live service. So Warner Brothers stepped in and thought, right, let's get this cancelled. Maybe we'll get you to work on something that corresponds to our upcoming movie schedule. And we know we've got Suicide Squad coming in 2021. Maybe the aim was to get this out around the same time, which I don't think is going to happen, but it might have been the goal. And we're getting Suicide Squad as this big live service, and perhaps some of the Superman stuff's still going to make it into the game, to some degree, because Superman's clearly in it. It just seems like now we're targeting him, and Superman might even be the main villain, so to speak, in the game. So I think that could be really interesting, because when I saw the announcement, I thought, this is really cool. My favourite DC works in the last little while has been Joker the movie. Well, I'm sure this won't have anywhere near the same tone. I think focusing on stories in regards to the villain characters might be really interesting and allow them to break some new ground and do some interesting things. What I hope to see, though, is something similar to the Arkham games, and I think Arkham City especially, it was really unique for me in the era of open world games that we're still in. So that game came out how many years ago? Probably like 7, 8 years ago now, and we're still in this open world era where everything's got to be an open world, everything's got to be freedom, 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 it's all got to be like that. Nothing can be linear and hand-designed and really precise. It's all got to be open, but City was, for me it was fantastic because the world wasn't too big, and it allowed them to fill the game with content, not in an amusement park sort of way, but in a really genuine way. And it really felt like little comic book stories were being told, and it was like I was reading a new issue every so often. And let me explain that one. Basically, when you were doing the side quests, and whether it's the Riddler trophies, whether you're doing something with Poison Ivy, Mr. Freeze, often you were able to experience the story in little mini issues almost. So like the Riddler trophies, instead of just going around the map collecting all of them, and I've got to say that I love the puzzles that you solved. I hope puzzles like that make a return in whatever they do with Suicide Squad, because it wasn't just collecting aimless collectibles like you do in Assassin's Creed sometimes. It was more that you actually had to solve a little piece of content to then get that collectible, and then had a goal attached to it, which was you were solving this Riddler story. And along the way, rather than getting the whole story at once when you collected all 100 or whatever it was, they would drip feed it to you in comic book fashion almost, because maybe you get 15, you get 20, you get a little piece of the Riddler story, then you might go off and do another side quest, you might do some more of the main quest, then you end up getting another 15 or 20 sometime later, and you get a bit more of the story. And it was a really, really nice to continuously having this goal that still felt within reach. It didn't feel like you had to do a whole bunch of stuff just to actually get rewarded with something. You were always getting rewarded along the way, and I hope that design philosophy continues, because Rocksteady, they really only have made Batman games up until now. I was looking at what they've done, they're the only profile games they've created, so hopefully they carry the best of it into Suicide Squad, even if they're kind of getting ham-fisted by Warner Brothers into making a more of a live servicey, always online, microtransactions and all that shebang as well. So looking at the article I see on the game, and I want to mention there's not really a lot of info here. We're not going to get a lot of actual facts, find out what's really going on until August 22nd, I believe it is. And even then, Jason Schreier also reported, just some added context for today's announcement, Warner Bros. Montreal was working on a Suicide game until it was cancelled in late 2016. Then at some point Rocksteady started theirs, and it'll be teased at DC Fandom, so that's the August 22 event. But and then he says, I wouldn't expect it for a while. So I'm really curious what's going on over at Warner Brothers, because why have two studios in the space of a year or so been working on different games in the Suicide Squad universe? It's really odd, and we know they've got some sort of Batman game in the works. So there are all those Court of Owls rumors going around, and we've still heard nothing. So what it sounds like to me is Warner Brothers might have had like a big change in direction. We've kind of seen the fruits of that with games like Mortal Kombat 11, which are so fucking microtransaction heavy that for me they're just unplayable. They might be a good game underneath it all. I'm sure the developers have done a good job of what they've got. But everything Warner Brothers have done to them, I just think I'm going to go and fucking play something else. And then with Shadow of War, everything they did to that game, I'm just thinking, like, this is just another open world game in a whole sea of so many of them. Why am I going to play your game? When you've shoved the whole thing with microtransactions, you've made the whole thing just a barren experience because of it, when there's so many like it on the market. If I want to play an open world game, I'd rather play Horizon Zero Dawn, Breath of the Wild. I would rather play Ghost of Tsushima, because at least I know I'm getting the whole fucking game. I don't have to spend all these extras just to unlock the core features and have I would say, a competent, fun experience in the game. I don't want to be fucking doing that. Just design the game, bring it out, and that's that. When it's a single-player game, it's embarrassing. So it seems like now they're going more in the multiplayer direction so they can justify the nonsense that they're coming up with. So that seems to be what we're getting in Suicide Squad. And then coming back to the article, it'll reportedly be a live service, games as a service title. So what I want to see from it, at least if we're looking optimistic, and we ignore for the fact that pretty much everything Warner Brothers touch is rotten to some degree, they might be a good game, but it's in despite of Warner Brothers, not because of them, in my opinion. What I kind of hope happens, and Suicide Squad, it's a squad, so we're not just playing as Batman. there's surely going to be a few playable characters. And what I'd really like them to do, and where I would see it being done in good faith to have the online elements and everything still be in the game, is that you can have individual stories perhaps for the characters within the Suicide Squad. So I'd like to see, for example, a story with the Joker, and you start out as him, you do a bit of a single player campaign, and it can be set in just one world. Everything can be set in this one world, one map, whatever you want to call it. And you build up the story with the Joker, you build up in terms of abilities, and I'd love there to be some really unique abilities, because we're not playing as a hero here like Batman. I would love it if the Joker abilities were a lot more cunning, he does a lot more scheming, and that's how you solve things, and just instead of the typical stuff we might see in a superhero game. That could make it really unique. And what I'd like to see is maybe after 3 or 4 stories with these guys, that's when they come together. Maybe that's when we really have the big final battle with Superman or something like that. And then once it finishes, the story doesn't. So it might be a conclusion to a particular story, but not the conclusion of the whole universe and the whole game. That's when I'm fine with the online elements coming in, because it means I'm happy, because we've gotten the campaign side of it, and it's a genuine campaign. It's not a half-assed one that's thrown in the mix of the other online elements, but if we have an actual campaign, an actual map that's similar to Arcane City with these characters, then at the very end, the online elements open up. That's when you might have different options. Perhaps you can go online and a group of people can play as the Suicide Squad, someone else can play as Superman. Because he's so OP, and because they might have had so much trouble developing a game with him, why not have it that, because he's so strong, one person plays as him and everyone else kind of has to take him down and work together. Something like that I think could be really cool, and actually have Superman be useful and be able to reach his full potential in a video game without having to really drastically reduce everything he does, because it wouldn't work if that's who you played as for an entire video game. So that'd be pretty awesome to me, and it would allow Rocksteady to continue doing what they've been really good at, which is crafting an open world, but also including a lot of really meaningful side stories and puzzles and things like that, without just making it a barren world for the sake of it, like a lot of other open world games. But my worry is that Warner Brothers, they're involved, they're going to make this something generic, and it's going to be really just like any other live service title on the market. It's not going to be something brand new. I'm really worried that they're just going to go down like a Destiny route. They're going to go down like the typical Activision EA direction when they do their live services. And it's just going to be the same old crap with a Suicide skin over the top of it. And they're hoping that the movie sales and the popularity of the brand is going to allow them to sell this game and milk in those microtransactions from the whales who spend money on everything, because when it's a squad, the worry is that they'll find ways to expand the squad. And then you'll have to pay real money to get new characters into the squad, and they've got a story reason behind it, so they can get away with being this greedy. That, to me, is the real fear. And if they do that, I think the gameplay could instead just be watered down to going around as a Suicide Squad, just looting things, committing crimes, and your score goes up. And maybe there's like a randomly generated reward system when it comes to your loot and things like that. And it just becomes like The Division or something in Suicide Squad form. Because Warner Brothers have really shown that they're not interested in innovating anything. They're really just interested in what works this year. What works now? What's popular with the gamers today? Not on developing something that's potentially going to break new ground and some kid's going to go and play it and go, wow, I never expected that I would want this, but this is fantastic. I'm glad they took a risk here. That's what I worry about. Now, if we look at Warner Brothers and some of the other titles, though, there are some interesting rumours that circulate, and some of them actually go beyond rumours, like the Harry Potter RPG, which is clearly real. The footage we saw, it's probably like over a year ago now, but that footage was obviously from an actual game, and that's probably quite far along. And we have to hope that they don't treat it like some of their other games, because I was looking at their website, and one of the games that they advertise on the site is Harry Potter Wizards Unite. And there's a lot of awful mobile games for Harry Potter like this one, which are filled to the brink with monetization. You can barely do anything without being given the option to either pay money or wait. So it's never about actually some new content, it's just about, do you want to pay now, or do you want to just artificially extend the length of the game by waiting it out? That's pretty much the value proposition they've got there with Harry Potter, so I can just really hope that, hopefully with the console market, they've decided, right, let's just make a game that's going to be great for core gamers and the core experience, something that they're going to enjoy, and we'll leave the mobile crap to people who want to play mobile games, which to me is normally fine. It's just that they like to combine the two, so they want to get the best from the mobile game space, which is the monetization, and then they want to just shove it into the console games. Maybe use a few smoke and mirrors to make it look like it's a good proposition for console or PC gamers, but 99% of the time it absolutely is not. And I can tell you from experience myself with Warner Brothers, I do have a bit of a chip on my shoulder with them. Lord of the Rings Online, that is Exhibit A for me. When that game was originally out, it was made by a wonderful, wonderful studio called Turbine, who were very, very true to the books. They did a fantastic job with the game. There was so much integrity, incredible online community, the best I've ever seen in a video game. Warner Brothers took over the studio. Within 12 months, it became a freemium shell of its former self. They did things like create quests where the return of the quest, so let's say kill 10 boars, you kill the 10 boars, you need to go and turn in the quest to the quest giver, he was miles away. And you had an option instead of buying a blue orb with real money to teleport back to the quest giver. And when you do things like that, it compromises the design, because they don't let the designers just have free reign and then add in this crap later, all the microtransactions. Instead, they sit at the shoulder with the developer, telling them what to do. So they might be designing something and they'll go, hey, why don't you put that quest giver a bit further away? Because we want to be creating value for the microtransaction. So let's create the problem and then we'll provide the solution as well. So that's very much Warner Brothers. They've been doing it for years. I really hope that maybe they've learned their lesson from things like Shadow of War. They've seen the mistakes of EA with Battlefront. And they also see that when a really great game, whether it's Ghost of Tsushima or even Animal Crossing, even some of the Nintendo stuff, they see that you can release a quality game without all of the tactics, all of the nonsense and the smokes and mirrors. That you can do all that and gamers will still come to the party. And 10 million copies will be sold, 15 million, 20 million. And you build goodwill. It means you release the next game and you're guaranteed sales. Everyone remembers the last one. Look at The Last of Us Part 2. In my opinion, an absolutely awful game, but it sold in droves because everyone loved the first one and they'd already pre-ordered, and no matter what anyone said, they were gonna play the sequel. So I hope Warner Brothers have turned over a new leaf. I think I'm being very, very optimistic, but you never know. Things can change. I want to go in with an open mind, so Suicide Squad, I'll wait patiently for August 22nd. I'll keep an open mind, and if it looks good, sure, I'll keep following it, and I might even check it out. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give it a like, comment, subscribe, and thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next one, and bye-bye.